I still remember the exact moment my world tilted sideways. I was standing in my kitchen, the afternoon sun cutting through the lace curtains Roger had hung 20 years ago, back when his hands were still steady. The phone was pressed against my ear, and Mr. Kenneth Hartley from Marshall University's bursar office was speaking in that careful, apologetic tone people use when they're about to ruin your day. "Ma'am, I've checked our records 3 times, he said. Your daughter Brittany Sullivan was enrolled here for the 2018 to 2019 academic year. She completed that year, but she never registered for classes after that. She hasn't been a student here since May of 2019. I looked down at my checkbook, still open on the counter. $2,000, written out in my careful cursive just last week, paid to Marshall University for my daughter's nursing program, for her future. That's impossible, I said, though my voice sounded strange even to myself. I've been paying her tuition every month for 6 years. There was a pause. I could hear computer keys clicking. "Mrs. Sullivan, I'm looking at our payment records. We haven't received any payments under your daughter's name since that first year. Are you certain you've been sending checks to the university?" My hand started shaking. I set down the phone on the counter, put it on speaker, and walked to my small desk in the corner of the living room. I pulled open the file drawer where I keep everything organised. Bills, receipts, bank statements. Roger used to tease me about my filing system, but he always knew where to find things because of it. I flipped through the bank statements, 6 years of cancelled cheques, every single one made out to Marshall University Bursar's office, every single one endorsed and cashed. But endorsed by whom? "Mrs. Sullivan, are you still there?" "Yes," I whispered. "I'm here." If you've been sending checks and we haven't been receiving them, then someone has been. He stopped, seeming to realise the implication. "Ma'am, I think you might need to contact your bank and possibly the police." I thanked him, ended the call, and stood there in the silence of my house. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked steadily. Outside I could hear Mrs. Cheryl Patterson next door calling her cat. Everything was normal, everything was exactly as it had been 5 minutes ago, except that my entire understanding of the last 6 years had just collapsed. I didn't call the police, not yet. First I needed to talk to Brittany. My daughter has always been beautiful. She got Roger's green eyes and my mother's cheekbones, but she's also always been a little lost. 3 different colleges before she turned 23, none of them finished. A string of boyfriends who were charming and useless, jobs at Target, at Applebee's, at a car dealership reception desk, none lasting more than a year. When she called me on her 31st birthday crying because she felt like a failure, I told her it was never too late. When she said she wanted to try again to go back to school for nursing, I believed in her. I wanted so badly to believe in her. I'd been supporting her dream with money I couldn't really afford. My pension from Roger's 30 years at the meatpacking plant is modest. Social Security helps, but Cedar Rapids isn't getting cheaper. I'd stopped going to my book club because it met at a cafe and I couldn't afford the coffee. I'd been wearing the same winter coat for 8 years. The shingles on my roof needed replacing, but I kept telling myself 1 more year, just 1 more year, until Brittany graduated and got a good job and I could stop sending the checks. I picked up my phone and called her number. It rang 4 times before she answered, breathless and laughing. "Hey Mum, sorry, I'm just leaving the library. We had a massive study session for pharmacology. I'm dead tired." The lie came so easily to her, so naturally. "Brittany," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "I just called Marshall University." The laughter stopped. I heard background noise, music, voices, the clink of glasses. "Not a library." "What? Why would you? They told me you haven't been a student there for 5 years." Silence. Long enough that I wondered if the call had dropped. Then, "Mum, that's insane. They must have made a mistake. Let me call them and don't lie to me." The words came out harder than I intended. I've been sending checks for 6 years. Where has that money been going? I heard her breathing. Heard someone in the background ask if she was okay. She moved somewhere quieter. Mum, I can explain, then explain. I was going to tell you. It got complicated. I dropped out after the first year because I was failing chemistry and I was so ashamed, and I knew how much you'd sacrificed for me, and I just couldn't tell you I'd messed up again. I thought I'd re-enroll the next semester, but then I needed the money for rent, and then I thought I'd go back in the fall. But $60,000, Brittany, my voice broke. That's how much I've sent you. $60,000 while I've been eating oatmeal for dinner and wearing shoes with holes in them because I thought I was investing in your future. She was crying now. Mum, I'm so sorry. I'll pay you back. I swear I'll pay you back. I'll get a job. What have you been doing? I asked. For 5 years, what have you been doing with my money? The silence told me everything before she spoke. I've been living my life, she said quietly. I have an apartment in Columbus. I work at a boutique. I go out with friends. I wanted to feel normal, Mum. I wanted to not be the failure for once. And you sounded so proud when I told you about school, and I couldn't stand to disappoint you again. I sat down hard in Roger's old recliner. The leather was cracked now, but I'd never had the heart to replace it. So you lied to me. Every Sunday for 5 years you called me and lied. I didn't mean. You told me about professors who don't exist, study groups that never happened. You described clinical rotations in detail. Where did those stories come from? I watched Grey's Anatomy, she whispered, and I looked stuff up online. Something inside me went very cold and very calm. This was the daughter I'd raised, the child I'd rocked through nightmares and driven to dance recitals and helped with algebra homework. This was the woman I'd believed in when no one else would. I forgive you, I said. Oh, Mum, thank you. But I'm not sending any more money. You're on your own now. Wait, what? Mum, I need that money. My rent is due next week, and you should have thought of that before you stole from me for 5 years. I didn't steal. You gave it to me. I gave it to you for college. You took it under false pretenses. That's theft, Brittany. She was sobbing now, the ugly kind of crying that in the past would have broken my heart. Today it just made me tired. Please, Mom, please don't do this. I'll really pay you back this time. Just keep helping me until I get on my feet. And then you've had 5 years to get on your feet. You chose to spend that time lying to me instead. I can't afford my apartment without your help. Then I suppose you'll need to find somewhere cheaper, or a second job, or maybe you'll need to figure out what it's like to be responsible for yourself. You're going to let me end up on the street. I closed my eyes, prayed for strength. You're 34 years old, Brittany. You made choices, now you live with them. I can't believe you're being so cold. Dad would never. Don't. The word came out sharp. Don't you dare tell me what your father would do. He worked 60 hours a week for 30 years to give you opportunities. He died believing you were going to make something of yourself. Don't use him to manipulate me. She hung up. Or I did. I'm not sure anymore. I sat in that chair until the sun went down and the room filled with shadows. I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't cry. I just sat there, feeling the weight of 6 years of love and sacrifice and stupidity pressing down on me. The next 3 weeks passed in a strange fog. Brittany called 17 times. I didn't answer. She sent text messages that started with apologies and ended with accusations. I deleted them without reading past the first few lines. My sister Heather called from Minnesota, said Brittany had phoned her crying, asking Heather to talk some sense into me. What do you want me to say to her? Heather asked. Nothing, I told her. This is between Brittany and me. She says you've cut her off completely, that she's going to lose her apartment. Then she'd better figure something out. Heather was quiet for a moment. You sound different. I feel different. I did feel different, lighter somehow, despite the grief. For 6 years, I'd been carrying the weight of Brittany's future on my shoulders. Now I'd set it down and my back didn't hurt quite so much anymore. I started spending the $2,000 on myself. First I paid a roofer to fix the shingles, then I bought a new winter coat from the Coles clearance rack, still practical but warm and without any holes. I went to my book club and ordered coffee and a scone and didn't feel guilty about it. Janet mentioned how good I looked, asked if something had changed. I stopped setting myself on fire to keep someone else warm, I said. She laughed like I was joking. October turned to November. The leaves in my backyard turned golden red and fell, and I paid the neighbour boy Travis $20 to rake them. Small luxuries, normal life. Then on a Saturday morning when frost covered my windows and I was making real bacon for breakfast, not the turkey kind, the real kind, someone knocked on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. Heather wasn't visiting until Thanksgiving. My church friends usually called first. I opened the door and there stood Brittany. She looked terrible. Her hair, usually glossy and styled, hung limp around her face. She'd lost weight, too much weight. Her designer jeans hung loose on her hips, and she was wearing a thin jacket completely inadequate for the Iowa November cold. She had 2 garbage bags at her feet, presumably containing everything she owned. "Hi, Mum," she said, and her voice cracked. We stared at each other across the threshold. I should have felt triumph, maybe, or vindication. Instead, I just felt immensely sad. "I got evicted," she said. "3 weeks ago. I've been staying with friends," but she trailed off, shivering. I didn't know where else to go. This was the moment I realised the turning point. I could let her in, go back to enabling her, rescue her again like I always had. Or I could, let my daughter freeze, let her sleep on the street. "Can I come in?" she asked, "please." I stepped back and let her in, but I didn't help her with the garbage bags. She dragged them across the threshold herself, leaving a wet trail on the hardwood Roger had refinished the year before he got sick. "Thank you," she whispered, standing in the entryway like a guest instead of someone who'd grown up in this house. I walked to the kitchen and turned off the stove. The bacon was perfectly crisp now, the smell filling the house. I plated it, added 2 pieces of toast, and sat down at the table. Brittany followed me, hovering near the doorway. "Are you hungry?" I asked. She nodded. I gestured to the chair across from me. She sat and I pushed the plate toward her. She ate like she hadn't seen food in days, which, given the look of her, might have been true. I watched her in silence, sipping my coffee. When she finished, she wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. "I'm really sorry, Mum. I know. I mean it this time. I know I've said it before, but Brittany," I set down my coffee cup, "you can stay here tonight. Tomorrow we're going to have a conversation about what happens next, but it needs to be clear I'm not going back to the way things were. I understand. I don't think you do," I said quietly, "but you will." She slept in her old bedroom, which I'd kept mostly unchanged. The posters were gone, but the white furniture was still there, the floral bedspread I'd made for her 16th birthday. I heard her crying through the wall that night, soft and muffled. I didn't go to her, some pain you have to sit with alone before you can grow past it. The next morning I made pancakes and we sat at the table again. Brittany looked slightly better, clean at least, wearing clothes from the garbage bags that actually fit. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, folding my hands on the table. "You can stay here for 3 months, not a day longer. During that time, you're going to get a job, any job, I don't care what it is. Fast food, retail, cleaning houses, whatever you can find. You're going to save every penny you can, and at the end of 3 months, you're going to move out and support yourself." Her face fell. 3 months. "Mum, I can't save enough for an apartment in 3 months. Then you'll rent a room somewhere or find roommates. People do it every day." "But there's more," I said. "While you're here, you're going to contribute. You'll cook dinner 3 nights a week. You'll do your own laundry and clean your own bathroom. You'll help with the yard work and the grocery shopping. This isn't a hotel." She nodded slowly. And Brittany, if you lie to me even once during these 3 months, you're out that same day. I don't care if it's snowing. I don't care if you have nowhere to go. One lie and we're done. That's harsh. That's trust, I said. You broke mine. This is what it takes to build it back. She looked down at her hands. Okay, say it. I understand. 3 months. Get a job. No lies. Good. The first week was harder than I expected. Brittany applied to 12 places and got called back by none of them. She'd sit on the couch in her pajamas until noon, scrolling through her phone, radiating misery. I had to stop myself from softening, from telling her it would be okay, from offering to help more than I already was. On day 8, I walked into the living room at 11 a.m. and turned off the TV. Get dressed, I said. We're going out. Where to find you a job? I drove her to every business within 10 miles, the McDonald's on First Avenue, the Target where she'd worked 5 years ago, the nursing home on the edge of town. At each place, I waited in the car while she went inside. Some handed her applications, some said they'd call, one hired her on the spot. It was the nursing home, Pleasant View Senior Living. They needed someone for the night shift in the kitchen, cleaning up after dinner service and preparing breakfast. Minimum wage, full-time hours, starting immediately. I don't want to work nights, Brittany said when she got back in the car. Then I suppose you'd better keep looking, I said. But the clock's ticking on those 3 months. She took the job. Watching her leave for that first shift was strange. She wore black pants and a white polo shirt they'd given her, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, no makeup. She looked young and scared and nothing like the polished woman who'd been posting photos from expensive brunches in Columbus while I ate oatmeal in Cedar Rapids. And what if I'm terrible at it? She asked at the door. Then you'll learn to be better, I said. She came home at 7 the next morning, exhausted and smelling like industrial soap and scrambled eggs. She went straight to bed and slept until 3 in the afternoon. When she came downstairs, she made herself a sandwich and sat at the table. It was awful, she said. The industrial dishwasher kept jamming. My supervisor, this woman Crystal, is like 23 and kept acting like I was stupid. And some of the residents wander into the kitchen at night, and one of them kept calling me Nicole and asking where her daughter was. Sounds difficult, I said, not looking up from my book. Aren't you going to say anything else? Like what? I don't know. That I'm doing a good job, that you're proud of me. I set down my book and looked at her. Brittany, you went to one shift at a job you only took because you had no other choice. I'm not going to throw you a parade for doing the bare minimum that adults do every day. Her face flushed. You used to be nicer. I used to be a lot of things, I said. But nice wasn't getting either of us anywhere good. She went back upstairs. I heard her on the phone with someone, voice rising and falling in complaint. I didn't care. She'd show up to work or she wouldn't. She'd figure out how to be responsible or she wouldn't. Either way, it was her choice now, not mine. The weeks passed. Brittany kept going to work, though she complained constantly. She burned dinner twice during her cooking nights, and I made her eat the burnt food alongside me. She forgot to take out the trash one week, and I let it pile up until she noticed and dealt with it herself. But slowly I started seeing small changes. She got her first paycheck and stared at it for a long time, like she couldn't quite believe the amount was so small for 2 weeks of work. She started packing leftovers for her breaks instead of buying food. She stopped mentioning her old friends from Columbus, the ones who'd apparently vanished once she couldn't afford to go out anymore. One night, about 6 weeks into her stay, she came home and found me at the kitchen table with my Bible open and a cup of tea going cold beside me. I'd been praying for wisdom, for patience, for the strength to love my daughter well, even when it was hard. Mum, she said quietly, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you forgive me? I looked up at her. She was standing in the doorway in her work clothes, her hair escaping its ponytail, looking genuinely curious. Because I love you, I said simply, and because holding on to anger would hurt me more than it would hurt you. But you're still making me leave in 3 months, even though you forgave me. Yes, I don't understand. I closed my Bible and gestured for her to sit. She did, looking confused. Brittany, forgiveness doesn't mean there aren't consequences. You stole from me. You lied to me for years. I forgive you for that. I don't carry that bitterness anymore. But forgiveness doesn't mean I pretend it didn't happen. It doesn't mean I go back to enabling you. It means I release you to face the results of your choices without my anger attached to them. She was quiet for a long moment. I really messed up. You did. I don't know if I can make it on my own. You won't know until you try. What if I fail? I reached across the table and took her hand. Then you fail, and you get back up and try again. That's what adults do. Tears ran down her face. I wasted all that money. I wasted years. I could have actually gone to school, actually become a nurse, actually been someone. You still can, I said. Not with my money, but with your own. Community college is affordable. Financial aid exists. Night classes exist. But first you have to prove to yourself that you can stand on your own 2 feet. I'm scared. I know, honey. But being scared doesn't mean you get to opt out of growing up. The final month went by too fast. Brittany found a room for rent in a house with 3 other people, $450 a month, utilities included. It was in a rough neighbourhood, the house needed work, and her room was barely big enough for a twin bed and a dresser. But it was hers, paid for with money she'd earned. The night before she moved out, I made her favourite meal, pot roast with carrots and potatoes, the way my mother had taught me to make it. We ate together quietly, the grandfather clock ticking in the background. I know I haven't said this enough, Brittany said, pushing food around her plate, but thank you for not giving up on me, even when I deserved it. I'll never give up on you, I said, but I also won't carry you anymore. I know. She looked up and I saw something different in her eyes, something harder, sadder, but also more real. I think I'm starting to understand what that means. The next morning, I helped her load her belongings, still just those 2 garbage bags, plus a few things from her old room into her car. She'd bought it herself, a 2004 Honda Civic with a dent in the passenger door and 180,000 miles on it. She was absurdly proud of it. You'll call if you need anything, she asked, hovering by the driver's door. I will, and you'll call on Sundays? She nodded, then hesitated. Mum, what if I really mess this up? What if I lose the job, or can't pay rent, or... Then you figure it out. You find another job. You ask your roommates for an extension. You sell things. You do what you have to do. But if it gets really bad, Brittany, I cupped her face in my hands, the way I used to when she was little. I love you. I will always love you. But I will not rescue you from the consequences of your own choices anymore. If you fail, you'll survive it, and you'll be stronger for it. She hugged me then, fierce and tight, and I felt her shaking. I don't know if I can do this. You can, you just don't want to. She pulled back, laughed through her tears. When did you get so tough? When I realised that being soft was hurting both of us. I watched her drive away, her car rattling down the street until it turned the corner and disappeared. The house felt very empty. I went inside, made myself a cup of coffee, and sat in Roger's chair. For the first time in 6 years, I felt peace. The months that followed weren't easy. Brittany called 3 times in tears, once when her car broke down, once when her roommate stole food from her, once when her supervisor Crystal wrote her up for being late. Each time I listened, I offered sympathy, but I didn't offer money or solutions. And each time, Brittany figured it out on her own. She kept the job at Pleasant View. She started taking a medical terminology class online through the community college. 1 class paid for with financial aid and her own money. She told me it was harder than she expected, studying after working all night. But she also told me she'd gotten a B on her first exam, and the pride in her voice was real. The Sunday calls became something I looked forward to again. Not because she was telling me what I wanted to hear, but because she was telling me the truth. The boring, difficult, beautiful truth of a life being built slowly, honestly, from the ground up. 6 months after she moved out, Brittany showed up at my door with a check. "It's $200, she said, handing it to me. "I know it's not even close to what I owe you, but it's a start. I'm going to pay you back, Mum. All of it, even if it takes the rest of my life." I looked at the check, her handwriting, her signature, her money. "You don't have to." "Yes, I do," she said firmly. "Not because you're making me, because I want to, because you deserve better than what I gave you." I invited her in for coffee. We sat at the kitchen table and she told me about her plans, maybe becoming a CNA, maybe eventually going back for that nursing degree, but doing it right this time. Slowly, honestly, I used to think being an adult meant having money and nice things and people being impressed by you, she said, stirring cream into her coffee. "But it's actually just about showing up, doing the hard thing, telling the truth even when it sucks." "Yes," I said, "that's exactly right." When she left that day, I stood on the porch and watched her drive away in her dented Civic. The autumn sun was warm on my face. The maple tree in the front yard was turning gold. Inside, the house waited, quiet, peaceful, mine. I thought about the $60,000, about the years of sacrifice and lies and misplaced hope, about the daughter I'd tried to save by carrying her, and how I'd finally saved her by putting her down. Some lessons cost everything to learn, but on the other side of them, if you're lucky and faithful and willing to let go, you might find something more valuable than what you lost: the truth, lived out loud in all its difficult, redemptive beauty. I went inside, closed the door, and thanked God for the courage to love my daughter enough to let her grow up, even when it broke my heart to do it.